Okay, now we're going to factor another set of trinomials. Okay, this time the leading coefficient is going to be something other than 1. Okay, the last time we had all leading coefficients of 1, or instead, in other words, this a wasn't here when I did the last video. Now we're going to have a number in front of our x squared or q squared or whatever that variable would be. Okay, we're still looking for two binomials. Okay, to multiply to FOIL, so still a FOIL process. In this case, we're going to use that grouping to factor that we did a couple days ago. Okay, so we grouped when we factored using the distributive property. We're going to use that again here to produce our two binomials that we want when we're factoring these. Okay, so in this case, instead of, in the last video, we were looking for factors of 2. This time, we're going to be looking for factors of 6. Okay, and we still want them to add to be 5. Okay, so now we take the leading coefficient, or that first coefficient, times the last coefficient to get a 6. Okay, and that's what we're going to look for here. Okay, so this time factors of 6 that add to be 5, that's 3 and 2. Okay, most of us could have come up with that pretty quick. If it was -6, we could have had 6 and -1, because those would have added to be 5. Okay, so there were other ways, but in this case, if we want it to be a +6 and a +5, they have to be 3 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to take this middle term. Let's use green again here. I'm going to take this middle term and I'm going to divide it into two terms. Okay, I'm going to make 2 terms out of the 5x. Okay, using 3 and 2, because 3 and 2 add to be 5. So I'm going to say 3x plus 2x, because 3x plus 2x is 5x. So if you notice, I just took the 5x here and separated it into the 3x and the 2x. Okay, and then I'm going to bring the rest of this down. So this still comes down, because I didn't do anything to it. And the 2 still comes down, because I didn't do anything to it. Okay, so I separated it. Now it looks like one of those problems we did a couple days ago where we grouped. Okay, now you might have an arrangement problem where you have to rearrange. This time we don't, because my 3x and 3x squared are next to each other. If the 2x was over there, I may have wanted to switch the order so that the 3x was next to it. Okay, and now I can group the 2x and the 2. Okay, now I just factor out of the first group by using distribution, just reverse distribution here, and I can take a 3x out, and I'm left with x plus 1 plus, because that plus sign is there. Okay, and in the second group I can take a 2 out, and I'm left with x plus 1. Okay, now, just like we have in the past, both terms share an x plus 1. So I take an x plus 1 out, and I'm left with 3x plus 2. Two binomials, x plus 1 times 3x plus 2. Now, we've done this on the last couple videos. How do we check it? Well, in this case, we have two binomials, so we check by FOIL. Okay? So I'll rewrite it down here, and we'll check it. So first, 3x squared, outside 2x, inside that's 3x, and last is 2. Combine like terms, 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. Is that the correct trinomial. 3x squared plus 5x plus 2, that is correct. Our solutions, or our, not solutions, our factored form is correct. This is the correct solution, or the correct factored form of that trinomial. Okay, let's do one more example. Okay, now this one is a little bit more special because this one, you can actually factor something out right now before we do anything else. So let's take out a 3 from everything. Okay, so now it's 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. Okay, you always want to check for that. If you can take something out of all of the terms, take that out, because it's going to make your factoring easier later. Okay, and it's always nicer to factor smaller numbers than it is to factor bigger numbers. Okay, now we have to leave this 3 on the outside, so we can't just drop it and get rid of it. So anything I do from here on out, I have to carry that 3 along that's on the outside of this parentheses. Okay, so now I'm looking for factors of, oh my, we have the same, almost the same situation here. Factors of, this time it's -6, because that's a -3, that add to be 5. And I believe this time 6 and -1. 6 and -1 multiply to be -6, and 6 and -1 add to be 5. Okay, so I'm going to divide up my middle term. So I'm going to leave the 2x squared. I'm going to separate the 5x. Okay, and it doesn't really matter how you do it. I'm going to do plus 6x minus 1x minus 3. Okay, and now I'm going to group. And that 3, I know it's annoying out there, but I'm going to leave it out there and work with everything on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to put another set of parentheses in here. I've got a minus in front of my 1 here, so I'm going to put that inside the parentheses, and then this might be hard for me to write, but I'm going to add a plus sign in there. Okay, it's a little crowded, but it's in there. Okay, and I'm going to make these actually look like parentheses, because I don't want you to think that that's the absolute value of x minus 3. Okay, because it's not. Okay, and now the 3 stays out here. What can I take out of the first group? 2x squared plus 6x. I can take a 2x out, which leaves me with x plus 3. The second group, I have a -x, or a -1x, and a -3. So I can take a -1 out. Always want to pull that negative out if it's on the first term in your binomial. It's going to make it look neater, and it's also going to help you match up with the other one. Okay, if I take a -1 out of this first term, I'm left with just a positive x. If I take a -1 out of a -3, or take -3 divided by -1, I get a positive 3. Okay? Now, I can take x plus 3 out of both terms, and I'm left with 2x minus 1. 2x minus 1. Okay, so supposedly, I have found 2 binomials, and I found an extra constant in there, that when I multiply all 3 of them together, I get my original trinomial. Okay, let's check that. Check with FOIL again. One more time. Okay, bring this down so that we can FOIL it out, and we'll just multiply the 3 at the very end. We'll distribute that 3 through at the very end. So let's FOIL the first. Let's FOIL here first. That's 2x squared. Oop, and we need that 3 in there. Outside, that's -x. Inside, that is 5x. No, that's 6x. And last is -3. Okay, combine like terms. 2x squared. -x and positive 6x is plus 5x minus 3. And then distribute the 3 remember, we're just checking here. This isn't necessarily part of the problem. We've already found our solution. So 3 times 2x squared is 6x squared, plus 3 times 5x is 15x, minus 3 times negative 3, negative 9. Is that the same as what we started with? 6x squared plus 15x minus 9, it is. So this is the correct factored form of our original trinomial. Okay, so there were 2 examples of how to solve or factor trinomials that have a leading coefficient other than 1.